Now another quick tip for you. But to bench test a coil, on a 2-cycle coil, you have a primary and a secondary winding. Working on a still blower. The owner says it was really hard to start, and then after so many pulls he finally got it started. He said he ran it for 20 or 30 minutes, shut it down, got his work done, and then needed to do more, tried to start it, even after it cooled down, and it wouldn't start again. So I want to clean this up first. You can't even see it says still on there. I want to clean this up first and then see if we can figure out what's wrong with it. Let's do it. Now before I get started washing this, I stay away from the muffler best I can, or I try not to shoot water in there, and also the carburetor. If it's open, it's not covered. Other than that, I want to try to clean this up so I can see what I'm doing. Now, again, I talked to the owner. He put a new spark plug in it, but it ran on the old spark plug, but he put a new one in just to see if that was the problem, which it wasn't. He also has fresh fuel in here. On top of that, he's a mechanic. He just doesn't want to mess with this. But I told him I'd take a look at it for him, see if we can figure this out. He doesn't like pulling anything. He's an older guy, and if he's got to pull it, he doesn't want to work on it. Filter doesn't look too bad. I mean, it's discolored. It's not a clean white one, but... And the pre-filter. Anyways, I'm going to clean these up, and I'll show you what I do to check them to make sure they're okay. If I'm outside like this, here's our pre-filter. Just hold it up to the sun. If you're inside, you can hold it up to a light. That's pretty dirty, isn't it? Yeah, that needs a good cleaning. And let's check the filter. Here's our filter. Hold that up to the sun. And you can see through it, but it wouldn't hurt to put a new one in there. So I'm going to set these aside. Try to start it without the air filter. Put it on choke. Turn it on. Choke off. I didn't know he'd have it full throttle. Give it some choke again. Choke off. I'll give it a little, maybe half throttle. She just don't want to kick. I'm going to try dumping a little fuel in there and see if it's a fuel problem that's blocking that. Now we'll see if it'll start. I don't think fuel's our problem. The spark arrestor screen is removed from this, so that's not an issue. And typically, when you got a problem like that, it just won't throttle up and it acts real weak. So I don't think that's our problem. I want to check for spark here. That sure looks like a new plug. Yeah, we got a new plug in there. And I can smell fuel. Now this is all plastic here, and to test for spark without a tester, you need to touch the base of the plug to metal. So I just stick that socket in there and touch that to the socket. So we got good ground there. We're looking for a spark right in there. And I don't see any spark. And he's got a new plug in here, and it did run for a minute. Let's go ahead and dig a little deeper. Pop this cover off. We got to take the recoil off too. There we are. Wanted to show you this too. It's kind of handy. They put the tools underneath here. Steel. That's pretty slick, isn't it? Carburetor adjustment, spark plug, and there's your Torx bit, the one I just used. So you can service this just about anywhere. Now another quick tip for you, which doesn't have anything to do with this, but if somebody's run straight gas in this without the oil mix, they could have burned up the piston and cylinder. And a way you can check that, if you have a gauge, you can check how many pounds per square inch you have to make sure it's good. If you don't, another way you can check, put your thumb over where the spark plug goes and pull it. You see how I pushed my finger off there, my thumb off there, and popped? That has good compression. I can't hold my thumb on that. See that? That piston and cylinder wall are good. But if yours are bad, your engine won't start if it's real bad. Or if it's bad, your engine will start, but it'll run real poorly. It won't throttle up. Just going to check the gap real quick before I pop this off. It looks good down in there. This is a tough one to gap. And you just use a business card, or if you got a feeler gauge, you can go 10/1000ths on the feeler gauge. Typically, that's what they are. You can look up in your owner's manual or online. Double check that. And that feeler gauge goes right, there's two spots. One right in the center of the ignition coil, and then there's another arm over here. Anyways, I'm going to pop this out. The little clip plug sitting under that screw on the outside one. So I want to pull that out. That one has the bigger washer on it to hold that down in place. There we go. You can see how that clips in there. There it comes out. Pull the plug wire through. Get that throttle cable out of the way. And the plug for the kill switch, it's over here. So I'm going to pop this off. There we go. I'm going to test it once more. Just pop that out of there, and then we're good. Now I've got that completely disconnected, so that copper connector, which is smaller, goes to the bottom of the coil, and the other connector goes to the ground. Let's go ahead and throw this back in and just double check. And I'm going to show you how to test the coil too out of the unit. I'll get this started in here straight. There we go. There, we got it in. Now what I'm going to do is hold the card in place and bring the magnet on the flywheel around. That'll pull that coil right into it. There you go. You see that pull right in? There we are. See how that's tied to that now? Now I can tighten those down. And that's the gap. Not the gap band, but the gap. There we go. Now we can pull the card out, get the magnet out of the way. There we go. Now let's tip it back up and check for spark. All right, here we go. The big test. Do we have spark or don't we? No. Nothing. And I'll show you one other way to test your coil. Okay, now we'll go ahead and bench test the old coil, and I also bought a new coil because we didn't have spark or we had weak spark. I think that's the problem. I'm hoping that'll fix it. But to bench test these, and it's not always fail-safe because these can operate okay when they're cool, and if your engine's running and it gets warm, it'll expand in there and you can get a break in the windings and your engine will quit. These can go bad. So these bench tests don't always work. But to bench test a coil, on a 2-cycle coil, you have a primary and a secondary winding. On the primary winding, that's between your kill connection and the armature. Your secondary winding is between where the spark plug plugs in, the metal, and the armature. We're going to test both of them. The primary should be between 0.5 and 2.5 ohms of resistance. The secondary should be between, on a 2-cycle, between 5 and 10,000 ohms of resistance. Now I've got my multimeter set to that horseshoe right there. That's ohms. And if you don't have an automatic multimeter, here's another one, an inexpensive one. To test the primary, you want to set it on the lowest ohm setting, which on this one is 200. To test the secondary, you want to set it on 20 thousandths. So we'll go ahead. We're all set up here. And it doesn't matter which way these leads go. Doesn't matter which direction. There's no positive and negative. But to test that your multimeter is working well, you just touch these two leads together, you should get a reading of 0. That means there's no break at all and no resistance in this connection. So we'll go ahead and test the primary, touch the armature, and touch the kill connector. And we've got a reading of 1.4 on this old coil. We'll test the secondary, touching the metal in there and the armature. And we've got a reading of 10.56, which is just barely above 10 thousandths. So that's not bad. Let's go ahead and test the new one on the primary windings. We've got a reading of 1.2. And on the secondary, we've got a reading of 6.29, which is perfect for both of those. So the real test is going to be to install this and see if we'll get spark and that engine will run when it wouldn't with this one. I think that's our problem. If this doesn't fix it, I spent $11.20 on this coil, and we'll dig deeper. Let's go do it. Okay, we're ready to throw this back in. I need to plug in kill wire first. That's a loose fit. That's not good. I'm going to pinch these down a little bit. That's better. Now I'm going to stick a business card in here. Like I said, it's about 10 thousandths. And we'll set the gap. There, we got it in. Whew! Mercy, that was hard. Okay, now I'm going to bring the magnet around. And that'll pull that coil right in. There, I could feel it. Beautiful. Now I can tighten these 2 screws down. I'm going to push on it just in case. Good. Pull the card out. She's tight. Everything's in. Now let's check for spark. Oh, look at that. Yee, doggy. All right. Strong spark. All right, let's put this back together and see if she'll run. Come on, baby. And we'll clean up our filter and canister quick. And here's our pre-filter. And I'm going to try to clean that up. Just take some carb cleaner. Best is to get a new one. But if you're not in the market for a new one, or you just want to keep going, you can clean these up a little bit. Not bad. And how about that? That's a little better, huh? Choke on. Power on. Oh! That sounded strong right away. Down here. I'll let it warm up, and I'll adjust the low side and then the high side. You still got the restrictor caps on there, so I can only turn it like a quarter turn, but it runs okay. I'll shut it off, start it back up, make sure it's starting good, and when you return it to them, nothing to it. Now that goes to show you, you can bench test a coil and it can test okay, but still be faulty. You always want to look for spark, and you can get spark testers too that are easier to see. I hope this video was a help to you. If it was, give her a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing, and I look forward to helping you with other projects online.